just talked about the fact that, finance might be a problem. For a lot of them, they believe that they already spent a lot of money acquiring the assets in the first instance and don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot to put into the business to get it to where they're looking to get it to.
If you want to buy a private jet for $50 million, right, and you put $30 million, it's a lot of money, but it's not enough money to do that. If you have a project for something, you want to set up an airline, you might have $500 million. It might be a lot of money, but maybe you require 700. So there's no doubt that discos are putting some money, but is that what is required to get you there, right? And then we don't want to go back to how they acquired the assets, that instead of pure equity, they borrowed and termed that equity. And therefore, post-acquisition, it became very difficult to raise additional debt that would have been used to enhance and run the business. So and back to that point is that, somewhere along the line, we need to see how we have to capitalize the discos by getting equity into that space, right? So the finances underpin a lot of the issues within the industry, but I don't think that the cry for force majeure is where we need to. It distracts from the work that needs to be done.
How big is the debt problem with discos and the banks?
That is between the discos and the banks, because to a large extent, if you assume that 70%, that they believe that 70% of the acquisition could come from debt loans, so the acquisition at $2 billion at a time, you could imagine what 70% of that could be, right? But that would mean including those of the generation companies. We don't know. I don't know. Definitely, I don't know what it is, but it's a huge exposure from what we understand. And then you have the debts that have piled up within the market. So yes, there's a debt problem in the industry, and more borrowing would not solve the problem.
Oh, I know that quite a number of people will be worried because we've seen how mismanagement of one sector can also affect another sector. In this case, these are two key sectors, the banking sector and the energy sector. If, for instance, the banks are not able to recoup their monies, their investments, because we also see that they are tied down with their loans to the petroleum downstream sector as well, do you think that our banking sector could be in any danger? We've seen them bailed out before.
I would not speculate on the banking industry. So I do not have the competence for that, but if they do have undue exposure, then maybe it might be a problem for them, a problem for the industry.
How do you see this matter getting resolved? Because if you say that this eligible customer situation is in the law, this is not something that was unforeseen, but now, right now, the discos are saying, but this is not going to let us recoup. You're taking over our customers, people that we ought to make money from to be able to repay the banks. How do you think this matter is going to get resolved?
Like I said, there are still things to be worked out, right? So there is the competition charges, and this is why I consider this posturing, right? Because you still have to work out what are the willing charges, what are the competition charges. When those have been put in place, then you could say whether we really would be at a great disadvantage when it comes to revenue. But until then, why don't you engage the system? That's why I think that it's just posturing. The details have not been worked out. The regulation in itself, the way it's been put together, looks fine, right? So work out the details. What are the willing charges? What are the competition charges? And then how do we actually implement every other aspect of the regulation? And then we can get to the point where...
In other words, these threats are premature.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's premature, and I don't see it getting to where it really has any solid ground down the line.
For Nigerians who are interested, do you think that they are very aware of this eligible customer, situation where they can apply to a GENCO and be able to get electricity directly from them? How broad would you say the education of this is?
Let me say that it's sophisticated, because the eligible customer is for the sophisticated and someone who buys, power in bulk. So he sees the difference. And the discos are crying not because of the regulation, they're crying because of the activities in the market. So they're beginning to see people jump around, trying to exploit the regulation. It's the competition the discos see. And if you ask most of them, if they're honest, their marketers are now doing a better job. Things they should have been doing for the past 3 years, they're beginning to now go out to find out who are their real customers, who consume, and how to better serve them. So the competition is there. That's why the discos are doing this. Since the consultation started, it started about 6 months ago or thereabout, and people have been watching. So the discos have seen the activities, and once the regulation came, they couldn't jump the gun before then, so they had to wait. But they've been seeing the activities in the market. So it is the competition, and it shows that the regulation is doing what is required. Some discos are becoming more attentive to their customers, and it's a very good thing. It's very good for the industry.
Well, I'm sure that some customers can testify to that. We've heard the experiences of one or two people in that regard. But wondering right now, in the middle of all of this, you worked with the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company. Is there a role for them in this?
I don't see much role for the bulk trader in this. This is it's a contract that is between parties, generation companies and consumers.
Does it take a burden off them?
It could take some burden off them because at the end of the day, the bulk trader is supposed to be a transitional element. So to the extent that contracts could get into the market without their intervention, without them being part of it, it is good for the industry so that somewhere along the line, the bulk trader can exit the market. So for the bulk trader, this is exactly what you want to see in the market, that there are bilateral trades that do not involve the government entity. Right.
Well, we have to thank you most kindly for coming on Sunrise Daily and shedding light on this particular situation. Well, Mr. Wonodi is the founder and CEO of ZKJ Energy Partners Limited, and also a former CEO of the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company. And he's been speaking with us here in Abuja. Sunrise Daily will continue about now in Lagos.